The Delhi and Mumbai offices of the BBC were surveyed by the income tax sleuths, and the ecosystem was quick to target the Sarkar and the central agency, linking the raid to BBC's docu-series India Modi Question. They said that the BBC was being hounded for speaking the truth about the Prime Minister. But now, months later, comes a stunning admission. Top government sources reveal that the British broadcaster has communicated to the IT department that it underreported its income in India over the last few years. Sources say that there has been no quantification of the tax liability so far. However, willingness to pay tax itself implies that there is tax liability. Remember that IT department had alleged that BBC had not paid taxes on the remittances which were not disclosed as income in India. In fact, sources say that the tax liability of the BBC runs into crores. But an email acceptance is not the right way to approach the agency. Now, soon after the IT survey, the Enforcement Directorate, also remember, had started its FEMA investigation into BBC's foreign investments made to the BBC India. Now, after this, the BJP called it vindication against those who tried to defame the Prime Minister and the centre.
अगर जो legitimate investigation एजेंसी होती है टैक्स में, इट्स अ वेरी माइल्ड दिस थिंग कि अब मान लीजिए आपको लगा कि आप में से हम में से कोई नहीं दे रहा, तो हमें आता कि जी आप बताइए कि आपकी अर्निंग कितनी है और आपने कितना टैक्स दिया है। ये बड़ा इनोकुअस नोटिस है।
वो तो हमारी बात सही थी, उसको वो साबित ही, अब उसको समर्थन दे रहे हैं। पहले हमारे सामने वो एलिगेशन था कि हम पार्शल कुछ कर रहे हैं, अब उसको पता चला कि मोदी सरकार में किसी के प्रति पार्शलिटी नहीं होती है, न्याय के पक्ष में हर कार्यवाही होती है। इसका ये समर्थन करने वाला किस्सा है।
देखिए, बीबीसी ने स्वीकार कर लिया, टैक्स कम दिया था, संवैधानिक संस्थाओं ने तो उन पे छापा डाला था, वो न्याय संगत था। लेकिन आज उनके मुंह पे तमाचा है। वो सारे राजनीतिक दल जो बीबीसी के पीछे खड़े हुए थे और अपने देश की बुराइयों के अंदर लगे हुए थे, देश को बदनाम करने में लगे हुए थे, आज उनको आहत हो रही है कि हम मोदी जी का विरोध करते हैं और मोदी जी का विरोध करते करते हम देश का विरोध करने लगते हैं और विदेशी संस्थाओं के का नाम बढ़ाने के लिए उनके पीछे खड़े हो जाते हैं, जो उनका लालच होता है, स्वार्थ होता है। लेकिन मैं मान के चलता हूं कि देश की संस्थाओं को और देश पर विश्वास करना चाहिए।
Now, after attacking the centre for allegedly hounding the BBC, the ecosystem now tried to float a face saver. Here's what they said.
And that's good that they have accepted it, that they paid less what they could have. Now they should pay. So they should follow the rule of law. See, what happened, that was connected with the documentary. Just it coincided. So the timing was that. So timing was in a way that it was rather a revenge, or they should have given the notices.
Now, let's remind you how the ecosystem had also linked the income tax survey to the BBC docu-series, which was banned by the centre. They had scoffed at the probe as vendetta against the BBC for speaking the truth. Today, the question is, will they apologise? Let's remind you what they had said back in February when the searches had taken place.
यहाँ हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहाँ सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है। विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धि।
बीबीसीच्या कार्यालयावरती दिल्लीमध्ये धाड पडलेली आहे, धाड टाकलेली आहे। एखाद्या प्रसार माध्यमाच्या कार्यालयावरती धाड टाकणं हे कोणत्या लोकशाहीत बसतं? म्हणजेच काय की तुम्ही आम्ही वाटेल ते करू, पण तुम्ही आवाज नाही उठवायचा। जर आवाज उठवाल तर चिरडून टाकू। ही जी एक पाशवी वृत्ती आपल्या देशामध्ये आज फोफावायला बघते, ती आपण वेळेमध्ये एकत्र आलो नाही आणि आपली ताकद वाढवली नाही तर उद्या संपूर्ण देश खाऊन टाकेल।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी बीबीसी से बहुत परेशान थी। उनके लिए बीबीसी पिछले एक महीने से सबसे बड़ा खतरा था। इससे सिर्फ प्रधानमंत्री जी की या केंद्र की नहीं, पूरे भारत की छवि जो है खराब हो रही है।
बीबीसी की जो डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म बनी, उसमें ऐसा क्या नया था जिसे इस अधिनायक सुप्रीमेसिस्ट सरकार को गुस्सा है? बीबीसी में जिस तरह के छापे पड़े हैं, समाजवादी पार्टी इसे डिफर करती है।
Let's show you this report that has been filed from the national capital and Mumbai on how the controversy really erupted, and now finally the response that has allegedly come in from the BBC.
BBC is again under the scanner of the Income Tax Department. This time around, BBC has made certain admissions. It has informed the Income Tax Department that firstly, it underreported the income in the last few years, and secondly, it paid lower taxes than the liability. We contacted the BBC office here in the national capital, but they refused to speak. But let me show you the visuals. This is the office of the BBC here in the national capital, which along with the Mumbai office was a survey was conducted by the income tax officials here in February, and that time around the IT department had claimed that it has found irregularities in the accounting books of the BBC, and also there were several discrepancies with regard with the transfer pricing documentation. Department had said when the survey was conducted here and in the Mumbai office back in February.
BBC has confessed, has in fact admitted that it may have paid lower taxes than its liability. In fact, BBC has communicated to the Income Tax Department admitting that it has in fact underreported its income over the past few years. Broadcaster sending an email to the department confessing that it underreported rupees 40 crore of income in its tax returns. In fact, the tax officials time and again had been saying that there had been alleged tax evasion for which survey was being carried out. However, the tax officials now coming out and saying that the BBC had time and again been stating that this was part of vendetta politics by the centre, which is why these raids were happening. Now, of course, the tax department, the centre, in a way standing vindicated, since the BBC itself had communicated, has acknowledged that there has been tax evasion, that it may have paid lower taxes over the last few years than its liability.